Good morning. We call this meeting to order this morning. This morning we have in our presence Pastor Kim Bernard to lead us in prayer. Please stand.
Most merciful God in heaven, you hold in your hand all the might of men, and you have ordained the powers that be for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of them that do well. We humbly beseech you, graciously regard your servants, the governing body of this county. May all that receive the sword as your ministers bear it according to your commandment. Enlighten and defend them by your name, O God. Grant them wisdom and understanding, that under their governance your people may be guarded and directed in righteousness, quietness, and unity. Protect and prolong their lives, O God of our salvation, so that we with them may show forth the praise of your name. Jesus, grant your protection over all our elected officials. Energize them with a growing knowledge of their duties. Bless their working style and polish their techniques of work management. Inspire their relational skills with their constituents. Enhance the health of our elected and appointed officials and their families. Give them joy in service and patience, especially on the difficult days. Thank you for those who lead us and govern us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. To follow. Kneels. Ready? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor Moss, are you online?
Bro, he has to unmute. Yeah, you got it. No, okay. He's on your chair.
Supervisor Moss, we have you online, but we're having a hard time hearing you, so if you could speak up, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
And Peggy, this is Steve Moss. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm not hearing anybody other than the audience. I'm not hearing Gary or anyone else on the board. I hear the audience just fine, though.
We've yet to start speaking. Is that better, Steve?
I can hear you fine now, Gary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I didn't.
Okay.
Oh,
Chair would entertain a motion to go into executive session 9:30 on October 21st, 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation.
Second.
We have a motion second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Committee or legislative reports. I'll start with Supervisor Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In recognition of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, the Department of Homeland Security has partnered with the Center for Internet Security Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center to put together the second nationwide cybersecurity review. NACO put together a webinar this past week on exactly what the review does for counties. All states and agencies within the states, local government jurisdictions, and all departments within, tribal and territorial governments can participate. In 2011, 162 participated in the first survey. When participants finish the survey, each participant will immediately receive an individual report that includes recommendations on how to raise the organization's cybersecurity risk awareness. Each participant will also receive a summary report outlining how the organization compares to similar peer groups. The 85-question survey will start on October 1st and must be completed by November 30th. I believe we participated in this last year. Also, we had another one with the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disability Directors, the American College of Mental Health Administration, and the Center for Women's Health put on a seminar about the new Affordable Care Act that went into effect October 1st. With counties investing an average $70 billion a year on county health, county officials are considered a key player in the new Affordable Care Act. Paul Beto, Deputy Legislative Director of NACO, mentioned that NACO is partnering with the Human Health Services to send ACAC Insurance Marketplace Outreach and Enrollment Toolkit for elected officials out to all members. One thing noted in the webinar is that in the role this new law will play on prison inmates. Paul Samuels from LA County mentioned that the ACA Affordable Care reentry program set up for inmates. Under provisions of the new law, eligible individuals in custody pending disposition of charges will be eligible to enroll in a health care insurance plan offered through an exchange prior to conviction or maintain coverage if they are already enrolled. Because of this, counties may be involved in eligibility determination and enrollment processing for inmates. This could bring about some concerns regarding staffing issues for the process, IT issues with making sure that technology is there to connect with state exchanges for enrollment, and eligibility issues. For example, if an inmate is awaiting disposition and later found guilty, the ACA requires that the enrollee must report this to the state exchange, as they would no longer be eligible for coverage. In practice, this responsibility would most likely fall on the county workers in our jail. And also another thing to keep our eye on is the Desert Landscaping Cooperative Steering Committee. They had their meeting. While right now they don't look like they're doing much legislative-wise, they're trying to get themselves some kind of authority to start regulating over our public lands. Also, we had a Quad State quarterly meeting. Besides some of the things that we covered there in the meeting that I've already given out, we're going to be changing our funding mechanism on how much we pay. It was brought up that the funding situation hasn't been quite fair for dues from each, so the one that we settled on was to have the dues taken out of 40% of the relative amount of desert tortoise habitat designated by Fish and Wildlife Service as critical, since most of the authority's work is still desert tortoise related, and it is the unifying species of concern across the entire membership. 30% of the relative amount of the federal public land, exclusive of military and Indian reservations, that lies within the Mohave or Sonoran Desert. This would reflect that the authority work with the desert resources and also the interagency relationships, which are desert-oriented, and 30% of the relative amount of the county's total population, which incorporates several other items which were looked at, such as county budgets and assessed evaluations. Total populations, based on previous discussions, did indeed reflect an ability to pay, but the 30% figure brings it into a better balance with other factors, and then there'll be a minimum $2,000 payment for people that don't meet those requirements. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Angus, do you have a report?
I have a quick one. Supervisor Brotherton and I attended the American Lands Council strategy meeting in Park City, Utah last week, and some of you may know we had hosted the American Lands Council several weeks ago, and he gave a fantastic presentation, and so this was just a little bit more of an in-depth. They believe that it is an economic necessity of the disposal of federally held lands back to the western states, and its precedent east of Wyoming, because it's been done before. The state of Utah claims that the federal government made promises to it, and that the federal ownership would be of limited duration, that the bulk of those lands would be timely disposed of by the federal government into private ownership or otherwise returned to the state. So there were probably about 120 county supervisors, legislators, lawyers. It's a movement that's growing. Mohave County is part of that movement, I hope, and in weeks and months ahead, I'll be making more reports and asking everyone to do what they can if they choose to get involved. I've been receiving a lot of good ideas and a lot of people who want to help. So again, in the weeks and months ahead, I will be asking for that help. and we'll let you know in further board meetings where we're at.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Supervisor Brotherton, do you have anything to add?
Yes, well, I didn't hear if Supervisor Angus mentioned it or not, but there were 13 states represented there at that meeting. It was just very, very impressive. But we also had our Arizona caucus that met concerning the gray wolves, and they are putting together a plan. The state should have an effective plan to balance the needs of the wolf with the needs of the population, if that is at all possible. But there was a lot of discussion about whether or not really the only DNA that we have, the science that we're relying on, is the science that's provided to us by the government. And there seems to be some evidence that perhaps that science isn't really accurate. So they have suggested that the states do their own science and perhaps use either the USDA Extension Service, the University of Arizona has those kind of things available, and because they just feel like that this probably, the wolf that they're trying to reintroduce, is not really the Mexican gray wolf. And if not, then it's not an endangered species. So we need to determine that right off of the bat. And we've got several attorneys, professors, what have you, involved in this. And so they're talking about possibly forming a nonprofit organization or an LLC to handle the litigation that is very possible on this wolf coordination agreement. Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico are already online with that and have determined that this probably is the way that we should go. So the Equal Access Justice Act has come into play also, and some of the ranchers are calling this ranching terrorism. So they are very active in trying to form. We've got a couple of attorneys looking into it. We also will need to have our county attorney involved, and I will be talking to them and see just how much they can be involved as far as advisory, et cetera. But we're making progress on trying to have a plan in the event that they proceed with this this reintroduction of the Mexican gray wolf.
Thank you, Supervisor. County Administrator's report.
Good morning. I have no report today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The approval of the May 6, 2013 Board of Supervisors meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Angus. I'll second that motion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. I'm looking through the sheets this morning, and I see no one's request to call to the public. So we shall then go to our proclamations. Proclamation number 1, the Power of Pink. Supervisor Angus?
Hey, it's Power of Pink Week, October 14th through the 19th, 2013. Whereas in September 2007, the Pink Heels Tour began, encouraging public safety professionals, local leaders, and citizens throughout the community to wear pink in honor of all women and to join forces to help them in their fight against cancer. And whereas during the tour, men and women tour drivers will commit up to 18 days away from their families for free to drive pink fire trucks and pink police cars across America. The Pink Heels Tour can last as long as 3 months, visiting hundreds of communities while driving thousands of miles. The tour brings a mission of love and hope by sharing their brand with citizens and towns across the county, across the country, inspiring people and our political leadership to put people first. And whereas the City of Kingman, Kingman Regional Medical Center, Kingman Fire, and Kingman Police Department will join efforts in honoring community members suffering from this terrible disease by hosting a Pink Heels Kingman Day on October 19th, 2013, and other events throughout the month of October. And whereas, imagine if everyone put a pink bulb in their porch light or tied a pink ribbon around a tree or light pole to show their support by turning the town pink for 1 week. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Mohave County Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the week of October 14th through October 19th, 2013 as the Power of Pink Week in Mohave County.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Our other proclamation is the proclamation Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Mohave County, October 2013. Proclamation, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, whereas the problems of domestic violence are not confined to any group of people, but across all economic, racial, and social barriers. Whereas it is battered people themselves who have been in the forefront of efforts to bring peace and equality to the home and law, and whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, humanity, and whereas the impact of domestic violence is widespread, affecting the moral fabric of society as a whole, and whereas the Board of Supervisors has challenged the citizens of Mohave County to speak with one voice to stop the violence, and whereas the challenges, the results in this collaborative effort of individuals, education, and businesses, now, therefore, we, the Mohave County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim October 2013 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and along with Mohave County Attorney Victim and Witness Program, urge all citizens to actively participate in scheduled activities and programs in the state of Arizona to work toward and eliminate violence in the home. In witness thereof, and we have hereon to set our hands and cause to be affixed the Great Seal of Mohave County this 7th day of October 2013. Thank you. Let's put both of these proclamations so we will not forget to sign them. Okay, item 5 through 61, the consent agenda. Following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon as a group. One motion with no separate discussion of said motions unless the board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and a separate discussion will be acted upon. Supervisor, do we have any to take off our
42, Mr. Chairman.
42? Supervisor Angus?
Chairman,
For me.
Supervisor Moss?
I'd like to remove items 34 and 48 and 61.
34, 48, and 51?
It's 61, I believe, 61.
61. Okay. Supervisor Brotherton, do you have any items to pull?
No.
Okay.
None for you, Mr. Chairman? Do you have any more for you to pull?
No, I don't have
And I'd
any.
make a motion to approve the consent minus 34, 42, 48, 61.
And I'll second the motion. There further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 34.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Steve Moss. The question I had with this item was I saw we were extending a contract by 1 year, but the actual contract was not attached to the backup material. That's my same question regarding item 61. And I think it's premature to consider these without looking at the actual contract themselves as opposed to the statement that we're extending the contract.
Okay. Would you like to speak to that issue, Administrator?
In looking at, Mr. Chairman, in looking at these two issues, unless the department directors have any objection, I would ask that the board postpone this item until they've had a chance to look at the contract. I'm sure it was an oversight that it wasn't included, but Nick, did you want to address it? If it's pleases the chairman.
Please.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Hunt.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. It will not hurt if we table it for another meeting. I just wanted to explain this. This is an existing contract that we have that we do ahead of time because I go through quality-based selection, and it takes a while to interview engineering firms and get them under contract. And then when the design comes, when the actual project comes, then we already have the contract. And we already had these contracts for 1 year, went through a lot of time selecting them, and then this would be a renewal for 1 more year, 1 additional year according to the procurement rule. But if the board chooses to table it for another meeting for a month, that would not hurt us right now.
Thank you.
I have a question. Will that work for item number 61 also?
That's for item number 61, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can make a correction to Nick's statement, I believe we could table it for just until the next meeting and not have to table it for a month.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Administrator, yeah, if you could just table it for 1 meeting and at least for 61, item 61. Thank you.
I would make a motion then, if it's okay with Supervisor Moss, to table this item till the next meeting.
And 61.
Thank
We'll
you,
probably do it in 2
Vice
motions.
Johnson.
Did you second the motion, Supervisor Moss?
I did, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay. Just so the Secretary knows. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carry. Item number 42.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion for discussion.
A second.
Motion and a second for discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I pulled this on the change order log for Lake Havasu Superior Court expansion, I see we pretty much used the entire contingency fund up, but also the numbers, maybe I'm reading them wrong or whatever, but it starts out with 2 additional electric data floor boxes and conduit connections for litigant tables, and that's $4,900. And then at the bottom it says, number 6 is conduit and data boxes, IT requirements, $497, and 2 additional litigant tables, $2,000. Those are the same thing, and I guess why didn't we, oh, and there's also a backflow preventer was left off the construction plans for $5,000. Well, we know we have to have a backflow preventer, so how do we miss all that?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, what I've done is to try to detail our, as best we can in writing in the county administrator's report, any change orders that come through, with the intent that if you have any specific questions, we get the project administrator or the department director down here to address the questions. And Steve Letowski is prepared to go ahead and answer any issues that you may have regarding the change order.
Thanks.
Morning, Mr. Letowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The County Administrator's report for the Lake Havasu Court expansion that details change orders number 5 and 6. Change order 5 provides for repair of a water intrusion that was discovered during the demolition phase of the project. The water intrusion that was a part of the roof structure as well as the storefront ribbon windows. And that change order did entail $13,069 for the contractor to repair those areas of water intrusion. Now, change order 6 addresses 2 items. The first item being conduit placement and termination to meet IT requirements, and that was an amount of $497. With change order, that change order also including a second item for 2 litigant tables for the amount of $2,010. As Supervisor Johnson pointed out, the contingency that has been appropriated for this project, which was 10% of the base project budget, the contingency being $45,225, it has been expended out to 9.7% of the total contingency, but to solely address 2 elements, one being any unforeseen discoveries such as a water intrusion, and 2 items to meet city code requirements, whether that be the building code or namely the fire code. We had some earlier change orders that addressed some fire code issues.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, my question is, I don't know what the date was, but at the beginning it says 2 additional electric data floor boxes and conduit connections for litigant tables. And then whatever date that was, and that was almost $5,000. And then down here, now it's only $500, but why wasn't it done with the first overrun?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, there have been 6 change orders processed in all. With regard to the most recent change order for the conduit placement, I can only ascertain that these are 2 separate items, with the latter being the conduit placement, that discovery being an element that was addressed when the conduit was ready to be installed, and the item was inadvertently left off the design plans, and hence this comprised some added value.
I mean, my understanding of it is that this doesn't read, I don't want to say it's not accurate, but we don't have the conduit is not on the floor now. Now it's being run through the ceiling because of a problem with the design or whatever to begin with. I guess that's what bothers me. We have an architect that does these things, that puts all these things together, and how do we miss a backflow thing, and then how do we not get our conduit in the right place, and now we have something running through the ceiling. I guess that's, I mean, we go out for bid and we spend an awful lot of money on these buildings, and it seems like everyone has a change order. I just wanted to bring it to everybody else's attention because it always bothers me when I have these. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lutowski.
Okay, I move to approve item 42, approve the report of routine county business authorized by the county administrator for the time period of May 17, 2013 through September 24, 2013.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Moss. Questions? There being no further questions, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Next item is item 48.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Certainly. Supervisor Moss?
The reason I request this be pulled is we're paying $800 per month to rent a well power generator. Is there no power within the vicinity of the site that we could just, regular power lines that we can hook into?
Supervisor Moss, we've discussed this at length before, but let's go into motion for discussion.
Okay.
Motion for discussion.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. I'll give you a little bit of background information from Administrator Hendricks, if you can give us a background on that.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, this is a remote location. it's a water well that's not owned by Mohave County. I think we've got a very good agreement for a very inexpensive source of water. Any improvements to the well, such as hooking it up to power, I don't think power is available out at that site, or the cheap alternate would be for Mr. Mardian to have his well hooked up to power. But that's his choice. It's his well. However he chooses to operate that well is not under our control. We're just entering into an agreement for minimal cost to obtain water from this site.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
So really the issue is not the power, it's the water source, and the water source is on private property, and they use a generator to pump it.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Moss, that's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Okay, move to approve. Item 48, authorize Steve Lutowski, Public Works Director, to sign the Pierce Ferry LLC well site agreement for the purpose of the county obtaining water for road maintenance activities in the vicinity of Meadview and Dolan Springs, and a fixed cost to the county's highway user revenue fund of $800 per month rent for the use of a well power generator during the term of this agreement.
Then I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Okay, that concludes everything on the...
I think we have item 61, Mr. Chairman. I'd make a motion to
61?
table it till next meeting, if that's okay with Supervisor Moss.
It is. Thank you.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to table the item till the next meeting. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. I'll go into the public hearings portion of the meeting. Item number 62A. We'll open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action for the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-101. The amendment to the Mohave County General Plan from urban development area to neighborhood commercial and urban development area general commercial land use as designations under the urban development area commercial recreation land use designation and the amendment to the Virgin Rivers area plan. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 62A? Anyone wishing to speak to item 62A?
Mr. Chairman, if you have no one, I'd make a motion to approve item 62A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. (62B). We'll open the public hearing. Discussion, possible action on the adoption of Board Resolutions, Resolution number 2013-102 for rezone of the assessor's parcel number 402-32-140, including 170, 171, and 172, from agricultural residential 1 acre minimum lot size, C120, that's neighborhood commercial 20,000 square feet minimum lot size, and multiple residential 4 acre minimum lot size, recreational subdivision in the Desert Springs vicinity, north of Fleet Street and west of River Lane in Mohave County, Arizona. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote at the July 10th hearing and the September 11th hearing, 2013. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item number 62B? Christine?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Development Services would just like to inform the board that due to the number of objections that were received by the Planning and Zoning Commission via a petition as well as statements at the commission meeting and letters, that 20% of the property owners representing 20% of, at least 20% of the area within the 300 feet area affected by zoning according to state statute did voice opposition. Therefore, approval of this particular item requires a supermajority or a 4/5 vote of the board for approval.
Thank you. Are any of those people in the audience today?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. I was at the Planning and Zoning meeting, and I think that they covered this very, very well. And from my standpoint, and what I heard, I really didn't hear any real viable opposition to this. So that's just from my standpoint, and I did listen very carefully, and I feel like that the commission had it correct, both times.
Okay. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept item 62B to rezone, well, adoption of BOS Resolution Number 213-102, rezone of assistant parcels numbers 402, 32, 140, 170, 171, and 172 from AR Agriculture Residential 1 acre minimum lot size, C 120M Neighborhood Commercial 20,000 square foot minimum lot size, and RM for a multiple residential 4 acre minimum lot size zones to a CDCRE Special Development Commercial Recreation Zone to allow recreational vehicle subdivision in the Desert Springs vicinity north of Fleet Street and west of River Lane, Mohave County, Arizona.
Second.
And a second by Supervisor Moss. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 63, open the public hearing for the discussion of the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2013-137 for rezone of assessors parcel number 120-04-031 from an AR 36 agricultural residential 36 acre minimum lot size zone to the CRE commercial recreation zone to allow development of a manufactured home park in the Desert Hills vicinity west of London Bridge Road, south of North View Drive in Mohave County. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Anyone here wishing to speak to item number 63 at this public hearing? Christine?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As with the last item, the department received objections to this item from at least 20% of the property owners representing at least 20% of the land area within 300 feet of the rezone. Therefore, as was the case with the last rezone, this rezone requires a 4/5 vote or a supermajority vote of the board for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Mallon. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 63? Close the public hearing for item 63. Chair would entertain a motion for.
I move to approve item 63.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Moss for the approval of item 63. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 64, open the public hearing for the discussion of the adoption of Board of Resolutions number 2013-138, rezone of assessors parcel number 227-21-063 from a C2 general commercial zone to a CMO, commercial manufacturing open lot storage zone for storage of equipment and other allowed uses in southern Mohave Valley vicinity, west of Highway 95 between Corona Road and Grandina Road in Mohave County. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 64 in this public hearing? Anyone wishing to speak to this item? That one, Chair would entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Angus to approve item 64. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 65A, open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action, adoption of Board of Resolutions number 2013-139, the amendment to the Mohave County General Plan from a rural development area land use designation to a rural development area general commercial land use designation for a portion of assessors parcel number 354-43-008 to allow for commercial greenhouse use in the Cedar Hills Ranches vicinity near Winsell Lane, north of Hidden Valley Road in Mohave County. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Anyone wishing to speak to the public hearing on 65A? Anyone wishing to speak to this item on 65A? Close the public hearing.
Chairman, I wish to make a motion to approve the adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-139, amendment to the Mohave County General Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Johnson. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposed, motion carried. Item 65B, open the public hearing, discussion for adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-140 for the rezone of a portion of assessor's property, parcel number 354-43-008 from an agricultural residential 10-acre minimum lot size zone to a general commercial zone to allow commercial greenhouse use in the Cedar Hills Ranches vicinity. Winchell Lane, north of Hidden Valley Road. Anyone wishing to speak to item 65B in this public hearing? Anyone wishing to speak to this item? There being no one willing to speak, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 65B, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution number 2013-140.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Supervisor Johnson. Those in favor signify, any further discussion? There being no further discussion, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Open the public hearing for item number 66A, a discussion, possible action regarding the adoption of Board of Resolutions number 2013-141, amend the Mohave County General Plan from the rural development area land use designation to urban development area light industrial land use designation for assessors parcel number 308-31-0114A to allow for a feed store and future trash recycling facility in the Santa Claus Acres vicinity. That's west side of Highway 93, south of St. Nicholas Parkway. Anyone wishing to speak to item number 66A? Anyone wishing to speak to item number 66A in this public hearing? Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 66A, adoption of BOS Resolution Number 2013-141, amendment to the Mohave County General Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Supervisor Johnson. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 66B. Open the public hearing for discussion, possible action, adoption of Board of Resolution number 2013-142 for the rezone of assessors parcel number 308-31-014A from a RE/1A, which is residential recreation, 1 acre minimum lot size zone, to a commercial manufacturing open lot storage zone to allow a feed store and future trash recycling facility in the Santa Claus Acres vicinity, west side of Highway 93, south of St. Nicholas Parkway. Anyone wishing to speak to this public hearing on 66B? Anyone wishing to speak to item number 66B? We'll close the public hearing.
I make a motion that we adopt Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2013-142, rezone of assessors parcel number 308-31-014A.
A second.
We have a motion and a second from Supervisor Angus on a project that I believe is very worthy in that area. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 67, open the public hearing for the discussion, possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-143, zoning use permit on assessor's parcel number 208-05-133 through 136 for a church in a general zone in the Yucca vicinity, southeast corner of 2nd Avenue and 3rd Street in Mohave County, Arizona. Anyone wishing to speak? Item number 67.
Yes, I wish to speak.
Yes, sir. And you must be Mr.,
Pastor Wayne Basie.
if you'll please state your name, your address, and your telephone number.
Pastor Wayne Basie, P.O. Box 771, Yucca, Arizona. Phone number? Did you say?
Sure, you've got it on there.
Okay, 928-377-1016. And I'm here because there was one concern with the establishment of our church. That was a neighbor that was concerned about water from our new building going onto her property. And I just wanted to make it a public record that we have addressed that issue with the engineering department, and that no water will be leaving that property, damaging any other residences in the area. So that was the only thing that was of a concern, and I just wanted that to be on public record.
Thank you very much.
Other than that, we want a church.
Pardon me, sir?
Other than that, we want a church in Yucca.
you certainly do, and as valuable as water is in that area, I'm sure that that's quite a value too.
Yeah, we might bring some living water.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak to item number 67? Close the public hearing for item 67.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve item 67, the adoption of the Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2013-143, zoning use permit on assessors parcel number 208-05-133 through 136.
Second.
And we have a second from Supervisor Mohave. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 68, discussion, possible action, approve hiring Ken Fielder as Chief Deputy Assessor at his current grade and current salary, as continued from the board meeting on September the 16th, 2013 meeting.
I make a motion that we hire Mr. Fielder as Chief Deputy Assessor at his current grade and current salary.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for current grade and current salary. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Johnson, Supervisor Johnson.
my same concerns are still at this meeting, that we are hiring somebody for a position that doesn't pay the amount of money he wants. We are changing that position. It didn't go through any kind of an assessment by our HR department or anything else. Plus, we have the treasurer, the recorder, the school superintendent. All these people also have deputies. Are we going to be raising all of theirs now? If you go to work for McDonald's, you take McDonald's salary. He is changing positions. I have nothing against Ken Fielder. He has adapted everything he does, but if he's giving up what he's doing now to become the deputy without those same responsibilities, he should accept that salary or stay at the position he's at. I don't think it's fair to the other employees, and I think we're making a mistake by doing it. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments, Supervisor Johnson. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a comment.
Supervisor Brotherton.
I think if Mr. Fielder is willing to take on more responsibility at the same pay, then that should be a blessing to the county, and I don't see why there should be any kind of objection.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Supervisor
may,
Johnson.
Supervisor Brotherton, I don't believe he is taking on more responsibility. He's taking on less responsibility because the prior deputy was our former assessor who was at that salary. So obviously, I'm not saying she wasn't as qualified as Mr. Fielder, but she did the job at a reduced rate. So I think he is taking a job that does not require as much expertise as his chief appraiser job does now. That's my problem. I believe he's taking a job from, I guess an easier one would be, say, an engineer goes to a job that's not an engineer, but he still wants to be paid as an engineer. You get paid for the job, not for your qualifications.
Yeah. Well, chief appraiser will be reporting to Mr. Fielder as the deputy assessor. So he will be in charge anytime that the assessor is gone. I feel like that actually he is taking on more responsibility. He's even taking on the responsibility of supervising the deputy assessor.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Mohave.
it's my understanding that the assessor, Ron Nicholson, wants this to occur, and since he's an independent elected official and is costing the county no money, I don't think it should be our purview to interfere in the management of his office, so I think we should approve this particular item.
Okay. Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nay.
motion carried. Item number 69. Discussion, possible action regarding the Mexican Wolf Recovery Program, including consideration of staff's report on available options, the status of this program and responsibilities to it, and how to best further address Mohave County's opposition to the program. We have with us Carl Taylor today for questions, but I'll certainly take any recommendation that anyone has on the floor.
Do we need to move to discuss? I make a motion to discuss.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
I'd like Mr. Taylor to come up.
Morning, Mr. Taylor.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Board.
Okay, so you did provide a very good summary of everything that's before us. What is your opinion, and what's the best course of action in your opinion to go forward on this?
I'm finding that when we contacted the other counties that were most directed by the Mexican Wolf Program, the counties in eastern Arizona and western New Mexico, they've got a wealth of experience that we don't yet have, because the wolf is actually being released and has been for 15 years or more into their counties. Most of those counties feel, I believe, as Mohave County does, that the cooperating agency status might make it appear that the county is cooperating with the proposal by the Fish and Wildlife Service. However, every county that we spoke to did take on that cooperating agency status at some point, with the hope of having a seat at the table in negotiating with the Fish and Wildlife Service. However, they admitted that they had mixed results, and no matter their status, they all admitted that the wolf is there still. One of the questions that comes up is whether the county wants to be included within a 10J population area for the Mexican wolf. The 10J is what the Fish and Wildlife Service refers to as an experimental, non-essential population of the Mexican wolf. Within the 10J area, the Fish and Wildlife Service says that there are greater methods of control. However, it appears that the control methods are primarily reserved by the service and by the Arizona Game and Fish Department. That still leaves ranchers and hunters and property owners, or people that just want to go out hiking in the forests, potentially lacking some of the tools for controlling the wolves that might come here and might get out of control. So that's a concern. If you're not in a 10J area, then the wolf outside of the 10J areas has full protection as an endangered species. In those areas, the Fish and Wildlife Service says that they will come and pick up the wolves and bring them back to the primary recovery area in eastern Arizona, the Blue Range. However, how responsive the service might be is anybody's guess. So there's a lot of different angles for the board to consider. One other prime consideration is whether the board might want to consider hiring a professional consultant. And we examined several different options and notified or contacted several different people that were referred to us. We also obtained free copies of correspondence that Apache County, Navajo County, and Greenlee, Gila County had prepared for the service to, in comments based on the deadlines that the service has provided. The next deadline for Mohave County and interested agencies is October 28th. Apparently, that deadline would be for the delisting of the gray wolf, the new listing for the Mexican wolf as an endangered species, and also a consideration of the establishment of the 10J boundary. So that's something that the board might consider, is whether they want to hire a professional consultant to make comments on that, on those issues. If they do, there's a very limited time to do so.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Supervisor Brotherton and I are very familiar with the consultants who are out there. You know, just sort of to make a weak analogy, it's like we're all trying to get to the same destination, but there's many different vehicles out there. And I, for one, think it's time we made up our mind what we want to do, because everything's just flying by, and we do need to make our voice heard. And is this now the time to talk about the MOU, or is that later? Would now be the time to talk about the MOU?
We certainly could talk about the MOU, or we can continue to talk about some other avenues also.
Okay, well, I do think it would be, personally, I do think it would be very beneficial to hire a consultant, because not only on this issue, but there are people out there that literally read the Federal Register every day and follow, and we need to know, because it's on an almost daily basis, things are happening to us, and that we find out too late about. For example, there was 10,000 acres, right, Supervisor Brotherton, taken away from Mohave County because of a wildflower or weed. We don't know which one. And we may have been able to do something about it if we had known. They're very sort of devious in the way that they get what they want. And so I think it's very important to have somebody who's looking out for our best interest. And however we get to that, I don't know what the process is, if we have to have a special meeting or a workshop to see what all the options there are and the contracts of those people. But I feel very strongly that that's the direction we should move towards.
Supervisor Angus, Chairman Watson and the board, may I address the MOU issue, please? The MOU that was drafted by the Fish and Wildlife Service and distributed to the counties in early September was reviewed by staff, and we compared notes with other counties, and we sent the draft also to our legal counsel. We provided back comments to the Fish and Wildlife Service that we felt would protect Mohave County better than the provisions that were included in that draft that were offered by the service. The service appeared to be offering a draft to all counties in Arizona and New Mexico, a one-size-fits-all approach. And we recognize that certainly Mohave County has special circumstances that some other counties might not. We forwarded our comments, our recommended changes, to our attorney, and he provided us additional comments back. We forwarded all of those comments to the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they did respond a couple of weeks back, September 24th. They did concur with some of the changes that the county was recommending. However, they are refusing to make some of the changes. Frankly, if none of the changes were made, and Mohave County signed the existing draft MOU that's being offered by the Fish and Wildlife Service, it's probably not a deal killer. From what we see, Mohave County might still be protected. Legal counsel didn't have any great concerns with the use of that draft. The one change that legal counsel did recommend, the Fish and Wildlife Service did make. However, if the board signs the MOU, then it's our understanding that the Fish and Wildlife Service automatically recognizes Mohave County as formal cooperating agency. And maybe that's a good thing. My understanding is at the previous board's meeting, September 16th, the board chose deliberately not to be a formal cooperating agency, but used the term coordinating entity. What we're hearing from the Fish and Wildlife Service is there is no such formal designation. So there would be no, if the county considered itself something less than a formal cooperating agency, it doesn't take on any additional rights and doesn't take on any additional obligations that it would if it was a formal cooperating agency.
I'd like to add a little bit of light, and I'm going to need the expertise of my contemporary at the end of the table there. While Mohave County was entertaining the Department of Interior with the uranium issue, we came across a gentleman by the name of Fred Kelly Grant. And in reading his latest information, specifically concerning the gray wolf and the delisting of the gray wolf and the listing of the Mexican gray wolf, He is indicating that we invoke the term coordination as defined by Fred Kelly Grant. Would you like to expound a little bit further on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We use it in the uranium. We're using it in another issue here in Mohave County, and I think that's the one that gives us the best standing. It has put us at the table. It's got us into the legal quarters because of that, cooperating. I mean, it just goes to show you, Fish and Wildlife, they know it's out there. They're lying to you. You know, I mean, they know that that can be used. And we're talking about cooperating. These other counties that you're getting all this information from, they were all cooperating for the last 15 years, and the wolves are already over their property. So I think, yeah, it's the board's, whatever the board wants to do, but if we're going to do it and fight it, then we have to go with coordination, I believe.
So, Supervisor Johnson, would it be in your idea then to follow through with hiring an attorney, then to follow through with invoking the coordination aspect?
We can do it ourselves, Mr. Chairman. With the short timeline that Mr. Taylor's talking about until October 29th, the board would have to look at, if the board wants to go to an attorney, going out to hire somebody with limited expertise out there, you're down to just basically a few attorneys, right. And then to get us on, but to get us onto the filing period. But yes, I think you'd have to hire an attorney, and you might just stand on your own at this time because the rest of them have all been defeated so far.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that there are counties out there who are utilizing the coordinating agency and have already done all the legal work. I'd like to ask Supervisor Brotherton if that's the case.
They have invoked that.
Yeah. So it's out there. I don't see why we have to start over because the work's already been done.
But I believe it's my understanding that we also have to invoke that.
Yeah, we do as a county.
As the county, we would have to invoke coordination as
Right.
opposed to cooperating. So if
My point is, why do we have to hire a lawyer to do that?
Well, we can do it ourselves, but then if the time comes for litigation, and what I'm thinking, since some of the other counties right now are in touch with attorneys and the attorneys that are expertise, they have this expertise, that perhaps at that point, if we needed an attorney, we could go in with them because they're certainly willing to do this with all the counties and cooperate, and it would be much less expensive for any of us if we cooperated with some of the other counties that feel like they may have to do this also.
Mr. Chairman, so would that mean that if we go with certain consultants who've already worked with lawyers to just sort of jump on the wagon with the way that they're doing this? Obviously I'm confused.
Okay.
I mean, because what I'm hearing is you want to hire a lawyer from Mohave County, but I'm saying we're already sort of on board with other counties who are already doing this. And so we can join up with them. And there are many consultants out there who are working with the other counties.
Right. I got the designation that I'm looking for is that we invoke the coordination aspect of this. If it's done so with cooperation of other counties, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that our constituency knows there's a difference between cooperation and invoking coordination.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Moss.
I believe that Supervisor Johnson has a wealth of experience in this area, and if he believes that coordinating agency status is the way to go, I believe that we should follow that line. What I think I heard was saying by Mr. Taylor earlier, and maybe by others, I'm not certain, is that we, Mohave County, are an independent governmental entity, and we should be invoking coordinating agency in our own right. Then we join with these other groups, so we have our own voice as opposed to hoping that because we're joining in with these others, we have the same status they do. we should claim the status, then join with these other counties. I do believe that we should explore with these other counties very quickly as to whether they've hired expert biologists and geneticists and attorneys to advise them, and then we should go in with those counties to share those costs and expense, because this is a very esoteric area of the law dealing with a lot of scientific issues and legal issues simultaneously, and with very rapid time frames. And unless we get all the expertise, both legal and scientific, we can in our corner as soon as possible, we may find that we missed a trick and that we're out of luck. So I hope that's coherent, because I don't feel very coherent right now. But I think we need to invoke coordinating agency status in our own right as Mohave County, then join with these other counties and groups.
Oh, and I certainly concur with that. If you'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
I will attempt to do so. I move that Mohave County invoke coordinating agency status and direct staff to communicate with those entities, both the U.S. Fish and Game and Wildlife and other counties and organizations, as to our assertion of that status, our invocation of that status, that we immediately confer with other counties and other like-minded organizations regarding the hiring of legal experts, biologists, geneticists, and other scientific experts to, in an immediate and rapid basis, preserve the rights of Mohave County as a coordinating agency to resolve this Mexican gray wolf issue.
And I'll second the motion.
Get all that, clerk?
I apologize. You have a feverish attorney speaking.
We understand.
Any further discussion? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 70, discussion, possible action, adoption of a proclamation naming the month of October as Cybersecurity Month in Mohave County, to be signed by the chairman of the board. Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, motion for discussion?
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, we participated in this last year. I believe our IT department, if they're here, if not, we won't go through it. If Mr. McDaniels is here, they put together their 30 tips each day on, people can check on our website to help themselves out. Here comes Mr. McDaniel.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning.
I wasn't really prepared to speak today. I didn't know we were going to talk about cybersecurity, but what I can tell you is that Mohave County has edited the front page of the website. We have a banner up on the website when you go to the county's page. It declares the 10th Annual National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We participated in this last year. We became members of the MSISAC, which is the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. It's the cybersecurity group that partners with NACO and the Center for Internet Security. If you click the banner, it takes you to a cybersecurity awareness page where we have a collection of links and resources. This year, there's not going to be daily tips. There's going to be basically categories of basically each week we're going to talk about a different cybersecurity topic. So each week I'll send out an email. You've probably already seen some of those if you're a county employee. Those topics are also available through one of the links on the website at Department of Homeland Security.
Thank you, sir. That's all I had. Just explain to everybody.
Okay.
And that's open to the public, too. They can click on our link to see
Yes,
where
there's
they-
also links to webinars that I think you shared those links, Supervisor Johnson, through one of your press releases. We also have those links on that page as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your expertise, as usual, Mr. McDaniel. Item 71?
We need to adopt this?
I'm sorry, item 70.
Mr. Chairman, if nobody has any other questions, I'd move to adopt the proclamation.
I'll second the motion. Any further questions? There being none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item 71, discussion, possible action, approval of the staff report on the medical examiner death certificate fees and cremation fees.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for discussion first.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, now I'd make a motion to go into executive session for just a legal answer from our attorney.
Okay. We have a motion to go into an executive session for legal advice from our attorney.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We shall
Will we be
be,
calling Supervisor Moss, or how he was going to know to get it, switch numbers? Oh, okay. All right.
Do I hang up or?
They'll transfer you, Supervisor Moss.
Thank you very much.
tricky, and you change the order where they're at.
One of these days, that'll be worth quite a bit of money, right?
Becky, do you have me there?
Supervisor Moss, we're not back in session yet, but hold on the line.
Okay, where are we at here?
Item number 71, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting. Item number 71. Supervisor Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review. I assume they have the death certificate fees and the cremation fees. I guess if there's any questions. We just were bringing it back because we had another agenda item. Part of the problem is that our medical examiner is signing off on death certificates when they should be signed off by the doctor's attending physician. The medical examiner should charge the doctors for not doing their job, but the medical examiner has not received any money from those doctors. She is signing the death certificates as quickly as she can because there's family members out there waiting for the death certificates. I believe if they're using our time, and now her reputation has to go on this because she just can't get a death certificate and sign her name off because she has to review each case, to make sure she's not signing off on something that's could be a criminal complaint. So it is taking up our time, taxpayers' money. So I think that we need to address those issues as far as charging the doctors who aren't doing their job by signing their own death certificates, and there has been legislation passed. Does staff want to talk to us now about this, or do we want to just put this over till we do a contract? How do we want to initiate that, Mr. Administrator?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I would certainly entertain whatever the pleasure of the board is. I believe your next item regarding the county, the medical examiner may answer some of those questions.
All right, we won't need any action on this item then, if everybody's satisfied with the report they received.
Fine with me. Supervisor Brotherton?
Yes.
Supervisor Angus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Fine.
All right. Go ahead and go on down to item number 72 then.
Motion for discussion.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Supervisor Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, we brought this back. This board met as a group before to go over the medical examiner and the future of the medical examiner. And right now we have a medical examiner that wanted out of a contract but has graciously stayed on for additional 2 years, and we only have a year and a half of that time left. So I think it's time that, and this board had kind of given that direction before, to decide, do we want to bring something in-house to hire our own medical examiner full-time who works for the county, becomes a county employee, whose people who do the investigations work for the county and become obviously under our purview, or do we want to continue trying to find somebody to bid on the job? So I guess that's what we're up for discussion. Staff has put together a backup on what it would cost to build, what it would cost to lease. Both seem to be the same cost. This item was addressed years ago when we built the new sheriff's building, and at that time we looked at putting it underneath the sheriff's building, but we weren't successful in that. My personal opinion is that if we build a building, make it state-of-the-art, and either have a budget for the equipment or buy the equipment, and then advertise out for somebody to come and fulfill the position, I think we could do real well. There's been questions from other counties as to maybe a regional center. If we want to, use that, I think we could do real well, especially being as far on the west coast as we are of Arizona. We're a long ways from the good services of Maricopa, and some of our cities have to, I don't know if they're doing it now, but in the past have had to send their bodies to Maricopa County to have them done for their murder cases.
Mr. Chairman, there was talk at some point to maybe speak with some of the hospitals around to see if that would be sort of a natural place to house the medical examiner's office. Has that happened, or?
I'm still
I
working
believe so. I
on it.
believe that they were asking, the one hospital that was up here, I believe, said they didn't want it in their building. Am I correct? Anybody?
Is that correct?
Supervisor Brotherton, I believe you investigated that?
Yes, and I'm still working on it because in the beginning, they weren't sure that they could do that, but now I understand that they're giving it some consideration, and so I need to push them a little harder for a real determination.
Okay. Would you
So
like,
I will continue to do
would
that.
you like some assistance
Yes.
in that? Okay.
I
Right.
think, Mr. Chairman, the time is what's killing us. With a year and a half left in this contract, if we go out and you know, my opinion would be to build a building that belongs to the county, and we can maintain it and have it built to specifications that will obviously work for a corner, then we need to get going on it pretty quickly to have it done in time.
If I could give you an answer, yes or no, for Kingman Regional Hospital within 2 weeks, will that be sufficient?
Oh, I mean, that's fine with me, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Brotherton. It's just the cost, because now you're going to be leasing from somebody who can, as a board, change their mind at any time if they want to, or give you a 5-year out. I mean, we've had contracts before with, not with them, but with, you know, MCC, who booted us out and took all of our property that was there. So sometimes it's best to go on your own.
Certainly.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Amos.
I'm not an accountant, and I'm not OMB, but I'm looking at some of these figures. It looks like the Dr. Worrell is providing services for $627,000 per year. And I assume if a peer of her was to take over the contract, or if one of the hospitals were to take over the contract, that there'd be something within that ballpark. But if we take it in-house, according to what I'm reading, it's going to be $838,000 a year. And that doesn't include the $1 to $2 million to purchase or refurbish a building. Isn't it more cost-effective to keep this on a contract basis?
Mr. Chairman? Supervisor Moss, I think the problem we've had in the past is getting the qualified people to come in and take the job. Dr. Worrell is the most qualified we've had in the time that I've been here. Obviously, she doesn't want any more. I don't know what the hospital, Supervisor Brotherton might have a better idea. I think Supervisor Brotherton might have been looking at space more than them being the corner. I don't know at that, because it's a job that not everybody likes.
Okay, because my second tier of the question is, if we engaged with like the Havasu Regional and Kingman Regional and Bullhead or Western Arizona and Warmsey and Valley View as to space and whether they'd contract to fulfill the role. It sounds like we've talked about it, but we really haven't followed up on that, and I really think that's a path we should explore before making a decision.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think Supervisor Moss, we have the 2 weeks, so that should be enough time for us to, we'll put that all on Supervisor Brotherton to get all those answers.
Okay. And if Supervisor Brotherton doesn't mind, I would like to send out some emails making inquiries also.
Very good.
You don't mind making inquiries also?
No, I don't. No,
Okay, great.
I don't. And I can tell you this, I took figures with me when I went to the hospital to talk with them about it. And the one comment that I did get from them was, it appears that Mohave County is paying a premium price for this service. If that means anything.
All right. All right. Do you want to take an action then, or?
I'd make a motion to continue this until the next meeting with Supervisor Brotherton to come back with answers regarding the private hospitals.
A second.
And we have a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. And good luck, Supervisor Brotherton.
Thank you very much.
Item number 73, Discussion, possible action on Lake Mohave Rancho's Fire District.
Motion for discussion?
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, we had an update one of our previous meetings, and then numbers were brought to us that, or were sent out that were different. That's why I brought it back to find out exactly what the numbers are. I don't know if Mr. Hepler or is here to tell us exactly where they stand now.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I believe an invitation did go out for Mr. Flynn to come and attend. We haven't been in contact with him today. I did expect to see him today at the meeting and provide us with an update, so I asked that this be tabled or continued till the next meeting, and for us to provide the board with an update on the financials.
I have no problem. I'll make a motion to table it until then.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table till the next meeting. That second was made by Supervisor Moss. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 74, discussion, possible action, Desert Hills Fire Department, which includes a discussion of a signed and completed contract with Mohave County appointed administrator, and updated report on the financials and progress made on recommending replacements for the district.
Motion for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, at our August meeting, motion was made by Supervisor Moss, seconded by Supervisor Angus, and carried to discuss that in view of the Desert Hills Fire Board not being able to fill its legal responsibilities, Mohave County Board of Supervisors directed that an administrator be appointed to conduct the affairs of the district and to make recommendations on further district matters to the Board of Supervisors. Staff is directed to engage D. Moscow, the head of the Desert Hills Fire District Auxiliary, and to prepare and evaluate the necessary contracts and documents which would, at a minimum, provide for the reimbursement for any expenses incurred by the county in this process, as well as indemnification and protection for the county from any liability of the district or otherwise, pending the appointment or election of an appropriate board for the Desert Hills Fire District. Further, authorize the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the district and the county, providing for reimbursement for the costs or services of the tax revenues of the district. None of this was done. There was no contract, there was no communications at all. Without a contract, everything done at the Desert Hills Fire Department District, in my opinion, is illegal and opens the county to liability issues, and that's why I brought this back.
Thank you for bringing it back. And what,
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Moss.
Is Attorney Ekstrom there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Moss.
Okay, I'm sorry, Bill. I'm not there to see visually. One, is it correct that none of the actual contracts, written contracts, were agreed to? But even if that is true, and I'd like your answer as to whether it's true or not, isn't there something known as a law, and the law is an implied contract? You don't need a written contract to have a contract. And if Ms. Moscow was acting with our authority and charged the district nothing, and there's nothing to indemnify, what's the issue?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moss, I had a hard time hearing what you were saying, but I think I know the substance of it because we communicated last week. We appointed an administrator for Desert Hills because they did not have enough board members to appoint or fill a vacancy, so in effect they could not operate. Unlike the situation up in Dolan Springs, there was not financial issues, things of that nature. This was purely a matter of appointing some people to run the district. In talking with our administrator who we appointed, Dee indicated she had no intention of charging the county anything. Her only task was to get a couple names and fill the positions. Based upon that, I felt it was not necessary to have an intergovernmental agreement or a contract or anything of that nature,
and expected that she would go ahead, appoint 2 individuals, and the district could go on and operate. I think that's what's happened. And given that fact, I believe it's time to indicate to Ms. Moscow that her service is no longer needed and thank her for doing the good job she did. That was what I understood the board's expectation to be, not to do the same sort of thing that we did up in Dolan Springs. Mr. Flynn cost a lot of money. Desert Hill doesn't have that. All he needed to do is get 2 board members on the board so they could run their district. And if there are questions involving finances or other issues with Desert Hills, those would be addressed by the board. And that was our expectation.
And if I could, Mr. Ekstrom, because that kind of meshes with my understanding of how the legalities work. In Arizona, you can have a contract in writing, you can have it verbally, and you can have it by conduct. And Ms. Moscow sent us a letter, I believe, saying that she had no intention of charging the county anything for her services.
And I'm here to say that again.
And that's correct.
Can I?
Mr. Chairman, if I may? Certainly. The motion had nothing to do with that. This was a very well thought-out motion by Mr. Moss, where it talked about contracts and liability issues. We've done the same things, and if I hadn't put this on the agenda, we wouldn't know today that the people have been appointed or that anything's been done. This was August 19th. This is over a month and a half. I believe the first meeting they had, they appointed people. I've also placed on here that there are open meeting law violations that are going on. They need some direction at this place. I mean, this is a fire district that I believe has used up 72% of its reserves. They had to lay off 3 firemen. They've got them through SAFER grants, which is just to say that when those grants are gone, they're going to have to cover those. They've gone from, I believe, 215 on their assessments to 3 1/4 on their assessments. I mean, this is a time for us to look at. I mean, today's the first paper we got, and Supervisor Moss doesn't have it, but it was brought to us and given to us on a financial, which doesn't cover what we normally have, but I think it's showing that there's only, if this is all of the money, 81,000, is that right? Look at the bottom line. $81,706.39. If that's the total of everything they have. There's been no audit when a new board was elected. There was no audit when the administrator was appointed, and there's been no audit of funds when this new appointment has been made. I'm just saying that with absolutely no communication, no following of the agenda that we voted on, that we need to relook at this.
May I say something?
Yes, Bill.
My name is Dolores. My name is Dolores K. Moscow. My address 3184 Owen Lane, Lake Havasu City, in the Desert Hills area. Phone number 928-764-3871. And I thank you very much for allowing me to speak this morning, Chairman and Supervisors. I apologize for being late in making this report, but I was unaware that these requirements were necessary. I had not seen a copy of what you just read, Supervisor Johnson. I just assumed it would be one of those jobs you go, you find 2 people, you do it, and that's it. So if you don't mind, I'll read a report of what I've done. After receiving 4 answers to the district's request for applications to replace the 2 who had resigned, I scheduled 2 separate meetings to make the choice, a regular district board meeting on Thursday, August 22nd, to acquaint all of them with what a meeting was like. The second meeting was the following Tuesday, August 27th, as a special public meeting, so the 4 could make their public presentations like they were if they were actually running for the office. After the 4 had made their presentations on the 27th, I made the decision to choose Michael Griffin and Sean E. Smith II to fill the 2 vacancies. You have before you the written presentations all 4 made. I assigned Mr. Smith to complete Dennis Burns' term, serving as chairman until his term expires on December 30th, 2014. He is eligible to run for another term, of course. Mr. Griffin is filling the term of Mr. Colson, which runs until December, and I'm sorry, it should be December 30th. He can also run for re-election that year. In addition, I purchased a revised copy of Robert's Rules, since neither gentleman had ever conducted a meeting. I also advised Mr. Smith on how to prepare a meeting agenda. I am still attending every meeting I can, and after each one, I give Mr. Smith a critique. Most of the time, he is doing great. Seems to have been born with the correct brain power to run meetings. I understand Mr. Smith has already talked to Mr. Moss about how the job is going and how they are progressing. I hope it is well done. I have given you copies of our region financial records, and these are not the current ones, and I did not give you all 5 pages of them. If you would like copies of all 5 pages, I'll prepare those when I get home and send them to you. And unfortunately, they are not the most current event, because when I decided to do this, it was 2 o'clock Saturday morning because I couldn't sleep, so I was reading the agenda to make sure what was going on. So this fire district has always been well run under both systems. It is one of the majority of districts who had no problems. In this case, the minority's actions determine what the total will do from 2012 and to who knows when. In addition, the district's auditor is, even as we speak, in addition to conducting the annual audit at this time of the district's finance records, this afternoon, tomorrow, and Wednesday afternoon, they will be giving the board and any of the public that wants to attend training sessions on what the board and the former secretary-treasurer should be doing under the new system. It's the best news I've had in a long time. Also, I would like to add, I conducted the first meeting after they were seated as board members because Mr. Smith did not feel confident enough. So they sat as board members. I conducted the meetings. I made no motions. I never do as the chairman. I never make motions, and I never second a motion. So that's what we've done so far. And I thank you for listening, and if you have any further questions, just let me know, and we will make sure that each of you get a copy of the audit of the current audit that's going on at this time. Is there anything else I can help you with? I know, one more thing. Mr. Hepler approached me before the meeting started and informed me he had requested financial records from, and I did not know this. He didn't contact me. He must have contacted the former secretary-treasurer, and he has not received anything from them, but I will make sure that you, and if you each want a copy, you will, and including Ms. Prince, I'm assuming she gets a copy of everything you get a copy of. So just let me know. And Bill, if you need a copy, I will be glad to make sure you get a copy. And Mr. Hepler.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking if Chairman Watson, if I could ask a question or two.
Yes, Supervisor Moss.
Hi, Ms. Moscow. Thank you. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much for your service. There's not a lot of people who would take the time that you've done for no fee and make the best interest for this small fire district, and who as committed as you are to this small fire district. So I really do appreciate your efforts in
Thank
that
you.
regard. The second question I have is you appointed a Mr. Smith and a Mr. Griffin, if I recall correctly,
Yes.
to this board, and they're the people that you thought were best suited to fill out the balance of the terms. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's correct.
And that's essentially what this board told you to do. Is that also correct?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
And did you send a letter to either the board or Mr. Ekstrom saying you required no fee for your services?
I sent it to the board. I emailed it, so it didn't have my signature, but I emailed it to each member of the board. I did not, sorry, Mr. Ekstrom, I didn't include you.
Okay. But the paper essentially said you to do the job for no charge. Is
Exactly.
that right?
Exactly.
All right, I don't have anything else. Thank you, Ms. Moscow. You are a wonderful person.
Oh, well,
and a
thank
great
you.
asset to the community.
My ego is up to here now.
Awesome. I'm glad I could make your day.
Oh, thanks. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Mr. Chairman? Ms. Moscow, I talked to you before you took this position.
Right.
And tried to talk you out of it. It is a complicated position, as anybody, when they get in here. And like I tried to explain, you were in charge of over $1 million of taxpayers' money, and there's a lot of rules and regulations that have to be gone. And we had no communications, and that's not your fault. That's just the board. You know, we didn't follow through with what our recommended motion was. And even in talking today, you're talking about how you appointed somebody to be the chairman. I don't believe that the administrator has those duties. And
They told me I did. Somebody told me I did.
That's the problem. It has nothing to do with you. I mean, you know, same with Supervisor Moss. God bless you for standing up and doing it, but sometimes it gets out. And today we're just going over. My idea is the motion was made. We can't go anything else. We hired an attorney here a few minutes ago, and he could do nothing until his contract was signed with us. And these things weren't followed out, and no communication was made to us. And to say that we're going to get some kind of paperwork later, I mean, I think it's our responsibility as the Board of Supervisors. We used our authority under statute to take over this fire district, and things have not been done according to the way they should have been done, and now it's up to us to look at it to make sure, or we're just going to continue to do something that might not have otherwise happened. That's my problem.
Exactly what do you want us to do? The members of the board could not be here today because they are taking part in the audit. So what do you want me to tell them?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Moscow, it'll be a board decision, and we'll let you know, because it really has nothing to do with you at this time. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I know all of us thank you for, you know,
Well,
stepping
you're
forward to
welcome.
do it, but it's legalities now, I think is what it is for
Right.
us. And-
Well, actually, well, I'll shut up and leave.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Mr. Ray.
interrupt, I guess, or reject some things here? At this point in time, Ms. Moscow has done what the board asked her to do. The motion said we should enter a contract if it's necessary. I felt it was not necessary. That was my call. If there's something in addition to what she's done that the board feels needs to be done, you want to give her some more specific direction to do other things, that's your prerogative under the statute. It is also your prerogative to just say that we have asked her to get new members, we have new members, let the board go on and relieve her of her responsibilities as an administrator. So those are what I see as your choices at this point in time.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Moss.
I thoroughly concur with Mr. Ekstrom's analysis. Ms. Moscow is an intelligent, civic-minded woman who did exactly what we wanted to do. She, on a very fast basis, appointed 2 replacement board members. They're very intelligent human beings. They're coming to grips with their district, and we should let them get on with doing their jobs as governing board members of that fire district. And with that said, I would make a motion to approve Ms. Moscow's services, approve her selection of the board members, and divest ourselves of anything further to do with this fire district unless further required by statute.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is that the legal thing to do? I mean, this is the first time I sort of heard that the word liability put into the mix. So I just want to make sure that everything we've done has been correctly done.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Angus, yes, I believe it's been done appropriately. It meets the test of the statute. You should know that until this year, in all my 30-some years with the county, this issue has not come up. So there's not a lot of things to look at to decide what your procedure should be. But in reading the statute, I think this is exactly what you should have done, just as you did in Dolan Springs where the issues were more serious. So I think you've reached the point where you can second Mr. Moss's motion with a
And I'll second your motion, Supervisor Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a discussion.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, it is not agendized to appoint these people or accept. This is agendized as an item that says we were supposed to be covered for the protection and indemnification of the county from any liability of the district otherwise pending the appointment. Further authorize the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the district and the county providing for reimbursement for the cost of services from tax revenues in the district. And while Ms. Moscow said she wasn't going to charge us anything, and I firmly believe that she wouldn't charge us anything, there's still the liability. We had Ms. Moscow down there taking over a fire district, over $1 million budget, with no insurance, no nothing. I mean, she could have been hurt. We have no idea. I'm not saying that she did. I'm just saying the worst case scenario, Ms. Moscow, you know, where the money went or anything else. I believe that it's incumbent upon us to find out for the people of that district exactly what went on. But I don't think it's agendized for ratifying what she did.
Mr. Chairman.
You are correct, Supervisor Johnson.
If I may interject, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, Supervisor Moss.
Item 74 reads, in part, discussion and possible action, Ray, progress made on recommending replacements to the Desert Hills Fire District Board. I believe that's enough of a statement that it is agendized to approving Ms. Moscow's statement, because that's part of the progress and part of her recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address Supervisor Moss, I think the difference is, Supervisor Moss, that we were never provided with anything. Nothing happened until I put this on. Today is when we finally get, when they hand us something before the meeting, so the public hasn't had a chance to look at it. That's my problem. This hasn't been vetted in the public at all.
Well, there's another thing here, too, also, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is when it comes down to it, Ms. Moscow was appointed to appoint the board members. I'm not really certain whether the board's in the business of approving the administrator's appointment of a board member. I mean, I don't know if we have that authority even under statute. Maybe Mr. Ekstrom could opine on that.
Well, Ms. Moscow has the authority to appoint the board members. My sense of it was that it would be good to bring it back to this board so that you could know who the board members were, so you could receive something from her. Legally, I don't believe you have to ratify or approve her appointment of individuals because she was acting as the administrator of the district at the time.
I have a comment,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor
Okay.
Brotherton.
Under circumstances like this, I believe that Mohave County Board of Supervisors could have taken over that fire district. Is that correct?
Could have.
Okay, we chose not to. So why could not we choose to appoint an administrator and let her do whatever she felt was necessary to do to run that fire district?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Brotherton, that's in fact what you did.
Yes, that's my point. I think that
Mr.
was-
Chairman, to answer Brother, I agree with that, but the motion that you voted on was not followed. This is somebody who went down there without a contract, without anything, appointed people, and then appointed them as chairman and treasurer. There's no authority in that statute that says to appoint them for that. I'm just saying that I don't believe it was done legally, and we just need to go back and follow what legally should be done. And now, because it's turned into such a cluster after this time, and nothing would have been done if we hadn't put it back on the agenda, it's time for us to look at it. When Ms. Moscow's bringing up the fact that our OMB had asked for financials and haven't received them, that brings up questions to me too, especially with the fact that they've been buying off eBay. This is not what a government entity does.
Supervisor,
May I say something?
one moment, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Johnson, how best would you rectify this situation?
It's a tough one. I mean, nothing was done at that. I would say that because of going through an elected board, going through an administrator, and then having now another elected board without us being notified of anything that went on, you know, except today when we got the information, and with the open meeting law violations that I see, you know, something needs to be done to, and they give classes on that. Maybe you, Supervisor Watts, I know you've been familiar with this, and Attorney Ekstrom gives classes also in the open meeting law violations if we decide to go with these new board members. But I think we need to at least have Mr. Flynn look at this. I mean, it might cost a few $1,000, but I think just to protect the board, because the liability is there. If something was done wrong or it comes back, it's all our liability. It's nobody else's. I mean, Ms. Moscow, she's got no liability. She never signed a contract. I mean, it's all us.
I understood I had liability. They told me when I was advised that I was legally liable for the fire department. Whether it was in writing or not, I understood that. Also, do you want to go back to the beginning and have me as administrator again and go through this whole process?
And I think what Mr. Chairman, what Ms. Boscow is getting into is one of my original points. To have a contract, you don't need anything in writing. Ms. Moscow has stated on the record, videotaped, audio taped, everything else, has stated in writing with correspondence to the board that she's charging nothing and that she is liable for whatever mistakes are made. I mean, we are turning this into something it need not be. This is a very simple transaction.
Also, I will pay the $2,000, so the county doesn't have to pay it. One thing I don't have to worry about is money.
No, Mr. Chairman, it's not about the money, Ms. Moscow. I just threw that number out there. I have no idea.
I'll pay whatever it costs.
We would never take your money. We would never take your money.
I'll pay whatever it costs.
I mean, it's
I'm
nice of you to
not
offer,
kidding.
but we will not, I can't speak for the whole board, but we're not going to take your money. It's our responsibility to manage.
I'll reimburse the treasury then.
But it's just that, Supervisor Moss is, these information that you're talking about, Supervisor Moss, was never given to us. I mean, that's the problem.
Mr. Supervisor Johnson, is that both you and I spoke with Mr. Smith, the board member Smith, about a week, 2 weeks ago. He went from your office to my office, is my understanding.
Supervisor Moss, no, he never came to my office. We had email exchanges. I gave him my cell in my home, and he never did call.
Okay, maybe when he referred to having spoken with you, he meant the email exchanges. So, but we knew who he was. None of this is a surprise. It's just not been formally presented to the board. And I believe under statute, and I believe Mr. Ekstrom's comments earlier to me indicated the same thing, there's actually really no requirement that this board vote on who the administrator pointed to the board. I mean, I think we should just to wrap up and put a bow on it, but it's not required.
We have a motion.
Did I say that correctly, Mr. Ekstrom?
I don't believe we have a motion on the floor at the moment.
There's a...
There's a motion on the floor that I made, and I believe the chairman seconded, was to approve Ms. Moscow's services, discharge her, and accept her appointments to the board, Fire District's board.
And my question was to the county attorney, we had no report to approve until this morning, so that it hasn't been posted or sent out in the 24-hour period. How are you going to vote on it?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Johnson, I believe your item on the agenda had the latitude within which the board could take this kind of an action.
Is that kind of like the two contracts that we continued over till the next board meeting because they weren't in the backup?
That was a choice.
That's choice. Whatever. I'm fine.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
No. Okay, motion is carried. And thank you very much, ma'am, for all the work that you've been doing for Mohave County and continue to do. We really do appreciate it.
That's include never giving us a report?
For me?
That's include never giving us a report?
I suppose. Anything else on the agenda today?
I think we're done. Those last two items were taken off the agenda.
The last two are taken off.
Need to adjourn.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Yeah. Boy, I got lost there. I got lost the last half hour.
Can I hang up now, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Supervisor Moss.
Thank you.